Good evening, everybody. I'm Elena Barbera. Welcome to the Base Mother Show. Tonight, we're going to be talking about our teachers grooming our children. We already know the answer to that, but we're going to talk about it some more. There's a woman named Tami Staas in Arizona, Mesa specifically, if you have kids out there in the schools. She was called a groomer by a citizen because of the way she teaches. And now she's suing 4 different people for defamation. Now, I'll tell you this about groomers. If it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. All right. I know a lot about grooming. So do my 2 guests that are coming in here tonight. I've got Kevin Hammer and Chris Barrett, who's running for a seat in his state house in Missouri. And we're going to talk about that later on. But let's get them in here. I'm going to break out this court case. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what is grooming. We're going to watch some clips from this teacher who was accused of grooming and decide for ourselves if we think that this is grooming. All right, let's go. Chris and Kevin, hello.
Hey guys.
Hey.
I'm psyched to have you here to talk about this, and thank you. When I told you that I wanted to talk about this case, you jumped on it, so thank you.
Absolutely. Because
right.
as we'll find out later on, I'm kind of going through something similar.
Yeah, right. It's personal for you. Not this exact case, but it is personal for you. And we'll talk about that. Yeah, I'd like to, like I said, talk about the facts of the case, and then is this grooming, and then everything else we're going to get into, because Kevin also has had some experience with, loony lefties not enjoying being called out, right? No, they don't like being called out. I mean, nobody likes being called out on their bad behavior, but they especially don't like it. And I want to just talk about the basic facts of this case. So this woman, Peggy McClain, published an article on her website called Not in Our Schools, where she called out local teachers in Arizona, in Mesa public schools specifically, for their absolutely overt intentions and efforts to get children to accept transgenderism and consider transgenderism as a lifestyle and think that that is the default norm for how most people live. It is extremely overt. And I'm going to show you some clips from an interview that this teacher, Tami Staas, gave on the internet very publicly. It's like no one snuck up on her and found her doing something. She has no qualms about what she's doing. I can't wait to get your reactions to those. So after the article came out, a bunch of other people did additional articles and shared it. And Tami Staas said that she was being defamed because she was called a groomer, and groomer implies that she's sexually abusing the children. She said that there was, malicious intent. They're portraying her in a false light, and they intentionally are inflicting emotional distress on her. And her whole life is upside down, and she's afraid now, which is nonsense, because after she filed the lawsuit, she continued to go on the internet and do interviews, and she was like laughing, and she's totally fine. So let me just read to you the very beginning of this court case, and then we're going to get into it. Okay. So you don't have to just hear my voice here. You didn't come here for that. So the main issue is whether accusing a school teacher of sexual grooming and grooming students for sexual behaviors and gender transitioning can be defamatory. Defendants made or reposted those statements about Tami Staas as part of a public debate over teaching gender identity and sexual orientation in schools. Defendants claim the statements are protected speech. Staas claims they are defamatory because a reader would interpret them as an accusation of sexual abuse. All right, so now you understand what the issue is. The jury is going to decide, was this woman defamed? But that is less of an issue for me than what she is actually doing for the children. I'd love to talk about what is grooming and what you think grooming is, because that's at the essence of this case. And then I'm going to show you some clips. So
if you don't mind. Yeah, so for me, I'm one of those people that there's a lot of times with words, I actually keep a bit more of a traditional meaning, or a meaning before in the now, when they became so focused on something specific. So I remember watching a lot of films and a lot of stuff when they would talk about, for example, a king grooming his son to take over the throne, right? Or a business owner grooming their child to take over the business. So grooming, at the end of the day, in a context, is to prepare, to get someone ready for something, right? Now, you could also then argue in this context, since there is a sexual component to what she is teaching, she is preparing children for a relationship with sexuality. Therefore, by that definition of grooming in the traditional sense, yes, she is. Now, obviously, that has even broader applications if we go by that traditional, that grooming just means to prepare someone for something, which, like, I know that's a broad application. But in this context, if you are teaching children about sexuality and with any kind of goal in mind, you are shaping them, you are forming them, you are, by that broader definition of grooming, you are grooming them. That's just how I read that. I'm sorry. In that context, she is a groomer.
Yeah, Chris, what do you think?
Right.
Yeah, as far as grooming is concerned, I mean, yeah, I mean, I agree with Kevin's kind of definition. There is the broader definition of what grooming is. I mean, you could say, for instance, because I have political advisors and stuff like that, I'm being groomed into being a good candidate.
Mhm.
But what she is doing is, again, and maybe I'll get another lawsuit for saying this, but she is sitting there, essentially grooming people into her particular beliefs,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and kids especially. And, I did make a post actually on social media not too long ago, yesterday I think it was, and I did say that I don't think that you're going to groom anyone into homosexuality or anything like that, because I mean, really, based on my own personal experience, knowing what I've talked about with Kevin, the vast majority of gay people, when they realize that they're gay, we try not to be that, and
But kids are being groomed, I think, into bisexuality and pansexuality, at least for a time.
well,
Until,
they're being exposed to these ideas that they don't need to be exposed to. But let me finish what I was saying. I was like, however, here's the thing. Uh, while I don't think that you're going to groom a kid into homosexuality, so I don't think that's something that that
Agreed.
society has to fear that much. I do think that you can groom a kid into transgenderism. I think that absolutely can be done. I mean, at most with the homosexual stuff, I think that you might be able to confuse a kid, which is that exactly. Kevin agrees with me on that. You
Yeah.
might be able to
Oh,
confuse
man.
a kid
Mhm.
and they'll believe in bisexuality or pansexuality or any of that type of stuff for a little while. But it's not going to take. But this stuff dealing with the trans issue, that's where I start having a real problem. I really do think that that's why we have drag shows for kids. They like to say that it's about making people open to homosexuality or something like that. I really don't think that's what it's about. They're wanting to see these gender bending men, promote the idea that, you can kind of be a girl too. And I think that that's the sort of thing that we're actually seeing there. And then, the inappropriate books in school libraries and stuff like that. That's something else that I touched on as well. I mean, the vast majority of these inappropriate books, it's all about transgenderism. Yeah, homosexuality is sometimes covered, and I'll be the first to absolutely admit that it's covered in disgusting detail. I mean, it's not appropriate for a kid. I mean, I'm a gay man. Do I have a problem with homosexuality? No, of course I don't. But the thing is I don't want kids to learn about this sort of stuff because it's not, and I'll probably get into some trouble here, it's not the norm. It's not what they need to be learning about. You know,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that's the thing.
Yeah, and if I may add, part of this grooming that is also dangerous, that they are most certainly grooming children into, not only, like I said, like all these other sexual orientations, just they're grooming children into sexual activity that their minds and bodies are not ready for. They're making it seem like it is normal to have sexual contact with each other and with adults in a lot of these books, that and a lot of the way these teachers are talking about this stuff. And the focus of teachers talking about children and how they feel about their sexuality and their private parts is just a sick grooming that makes children think that everything is about genitals and sex.
I'll flat out say it, Elena. I really don't think sexual orientation should be covered in schools.
Well,
period.
So
it's a personal matter, but I want to know it because I want to finish on grooming. I'm sorry, Kevin, but
yeah, well, mine actually kind of feeds into what Chris had said, but yeah.
So grooming, it's important to know it is what you're talking about, the traditional sense. Like Kate Middleton was groomed to be a lady, and now she's going to be, the king's. Now she's the future king's wife. But it is also, if you take childhood sexual abuse and you cut it into two parts, because that's what this is. She's being accused. She's saying that they're making her look like she's a child, like a sex abuser. And sexual abuse is put into two parts. It is non-contact sexual abuse and then contact sexual abuse. There's two kinds. And non-contact is what is also known as grooming. So it is a part of sexual abuse. So if she thinks that she doesn't want to be known as a sexual abuser, well, tough noogies, because you put yourself in that corner.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kevin.
What I meant by what I said earlier was that can, the reason I use the broader definition is, for me, I was also in a way thinking from a legal context as well, because she is, by definition, her actions are grooming. You're adding that different, and yes, in what you're saying, that is grooming as well. There are two layers to sexual abuse. Right? There are two aspects to it. So I fully agree with that. The only reason I used the broader one earlier was because I just wanted to highlight that by definition, her actions are grooming no matter what angle you're coming from. So
you're 100% right.
That's why I went with the broader application. And I want to go with Chris first, because he talked about okay, so to be blunt, I don't believe personally that you can truly change someone's sexual orientation in any direction, no more than you can actually change someone's sex, right? I think both. But however, just as with both, I do believe you can successfully confuse the hell out of someone. And I full-heartedly believe that, which is why, for example, I believe, boys get confused into thinking they can be girls. Girls get confused into thinking they can be boys. So it makes sense that someone who is heterosexual could be confused into thinking that they are homosexual. And what I want to drive that point home is, of course, Elena, you remember when we introduced you to Lindsay and queer kid stuff? Remember that? Well,
yeah,
a bit traumatic. So Lindsay is one of those individuals who describes being gay as when a boy loves another boy, or a girl likes, a boy loves another boy, or a boy likes another boy. And the reason I'm against that for several reasons, but one of the big reasons I'm against that terminology is because of how children think about this. So say a young boy is told that being gay is when a boy loves another boy, right? Well, that little boy probably has a friend that he loves. And children don't break up love like we do. Right. So you're confusing this child. If what you're giving a child is that gay means someone, a boy loves another boy, or a girl loves another boy, loves another girl, you are going to confuse them. You are going to set them on a path which is that they should not be on, a path that's going to lead that it's going to be quite dark. And it's why I actually agree with Chris, and I'll get a lot of hate, is I actually don't think that same-sex relations should, be taught to children, because the majority of children are heterosexual. Most humans are heterosexual. That's just a fact.
Wow, wait until you hear what's coming, and I want you to repeat that sentence. But okay, right. Go ahead, and then we're going to move on.
Finish up. No, okay, but that's pretty much how I'm wrapping up with that.
Thank you for kind of backing me up on that, Kevin, and you probably put it better than I actually did, but I 100% agree with you on that. And that is why I said that sexual orientation shouldn't be taught in schools. And I do see that as an attempt at grooming. But here's the thing that's kind
Mhm.
of like really weird about it. It's actually incredibly homophobic, Kevin. Wouldn't you agree? Because they're actually thinking that you can convert someone into homosexuality, yet at the same time, they'll be the first ones to gripe about the fact that, oh my god, you can't convert someone away from homosexuality.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, it's just hypocritical.
which is interesting because this is especially where I find the whole trans position interesting. Because are you not, if you put a child into therapy with the goal of getting them comfortable with being trans, right, being the opposite gender, how is that not conversion therapy? So the
Oh gosh,
interesting thing is,
yeah.
it's like the left fully endorses conversion therapy. The LGBTQ community at this point, by and large, endorses conversion therapy. It's just they endorse a specific type of conversion
Type of
therapy.
conversion. I mean, listen,
Oh yeah.
I'm a Christian, I see things now and at this point in my life through the lens of good and evil, and Satan one of his favorite tools, he doesn't have that many, is confusion. And this is, I mean, he's doing a fantastic job within the liberal progressive community. They have bought into his confusion, hook, line, and sinker. I just want to say real quick, we've got one comment from Sean in the comments here. He says, I believe it's the parents' responsibility to teach their own kids relationships, not the schools. Yes, you go to school to learn history, learn how to write, put together a sentence, learn the proper use of pronouns, not this gobbledygook that we got going on. All right, you want to
Thank
hear
you
from,
thank you so much, Sean, for saying that, because that's exactly what I was getting at.
yeah.
It's like, I'm like, no, you shouldn't be talking about sexual orientation in schools. It's just it really does seem like grooming when you're doing that.
Yeah,
Uh,
it
yeah.
is. Oh, go ahead, Kev.
No, I just wanted to reference one quick point, because I know one of the topics that gets discussed a lot is in high school or later middle school, early high school, a human sexuality course or sex ed. Now, what I personally think is important is an anatomy class teaching about what's happening to your body. I think that that's not a horrific thing. However, a class, if it's going to teach you about what's happening to your body, it shouldn't be teaching you what you should do with your body. And that is what the distinction. Understanding why, as a boy, your voice is deepening. I don't think that's a horrible thing to understand as to why is your voice deepening, right? Hormones are raging. Why a young girl is her body's changing, right? I think a biology class that explains the anatomical changes that kids are going through is important, because it is a confusing period with that. Okay, but when you cross to what someone should do with their body, what a minor should do with their body, no, absolutely not. That's
And that's
disgusting.
happening from as young as kindergarten. Now there are kindergarten and elementary level materials on things such as abortion. Okay, we're not getting into that. It's a whole rabbit hole. But I'm telling you, the things you just said, I couldn't agree more. We are so far from that in this country. It's absolutely crazy. Again, get your kids out of the schools if you have any possible way of doing it. They are better off at home. Anyway, let's talk about Tami Staas. This is the teacher who we are going to be talking about, whose voice you're going to be hearing. You'll hear one woman asking questions in these clips, and then this is the woman who's answering the questions, who is very, very pleased with herself. You ready, guys? This is the first clip I'm going to talk to you is where first she is really, this is where she's illustrating that her ideology is the ideology that matters the most.
If I'm cisgender, why should I share my pronouns?
Because you should never assume that everyone is cisgender, and it's kind of going back to that heteronormative as the default. You want to create a safe space.
Is it okay to ask someone if they're LGBTQIA+?
I generally don't. But then again, I kind of default the opposite. I assume everyone is LGBTQIA+ until I hear otherwise. I default to the rainbow.
No. Okay.
Oh my God.
Oh, I'm
Oh
about.
my God.
Bring it. Let's go.
When I
All right.
walk into, can I just say, when I walk into a crowded room, right? As a homosexual man, I'm assuming that everyone in that room is heterosexual, by the way.
That's
Why? Because
exactly
it's
what
just
I
the
was saying,
reality of the
Kevin.
damn
That's
situation.
reality.
That's
That
what
is
I
the
was saying.
reality.
I made that comment, Kevin. I said that. I was like,
Mm.
no, the default isn't gay. I'm sorry, it's not. And gay people, get over yourselves if you think it is. I mean, I'm sorry. The default is heterosexuality.
Mm.
That is the default. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for heterosexual people. Kevin wouldn't be here if it weren't for heterosexual people. Elena wouldn't be here if it weren't for heterosexual people. You can't do anything more to piss me off than to say something like that. And the fact that it's going before kids, ugh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm really angry right now with that.
It's amazing, isn't it? And she's mad that she was called a groomer. Wait, let me just give you another one that is in this genre of shoving this ideology.
Am I allowed to display or wear rainbows? Can I even show allyship in my classroom? Isn't that illegal?
No. Spoiler alert, it is not illegal. And yes, oh my gosh, show all the rainbows. My classroom is covered in rainbows. I wear rainbow clothes on a daily. I have a rainbow lanyard. I have rainbow glasses. Yes, please. This is a great way to show allyship in your classroom. If you know, basically is how it goes. I hang pride flags. I have pride flags around my room. I have inclusive pride flags. I have trans pride flags. And I have rainbow pride flags. It is not illegal in the state of Arizona.
It should
Okay,
be.
sure, fine. It may not be illegal, but I'll tell you what, it's really not the place of schools to be doing this sort of stuff. That's what I'm talking about. Look, guys, I do want to make it clear for the audience. Uh, you know, do I want younger people who might start feeling some sort of same-sex attraction to have support? Sure. I don't want them feeling like they're less than just because that's how they feel. But the thing is, since it's not the majority of the world, and to be quite frank, I mean, I'm not sure that we need to get into graphic depictions of heterosexuality either, because I think that could be,
Correct. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, I don't think I mean, I think that that could be used the wrong way too, so it's like, let the conversations about this stuff be between the child and their parents, or maybe the child and their other friends, or something like that. I mean, in my instance, I started coming out to friends in high school. That's when I started actually talking about it. And we'd have little discussions and that sort of thing. And then finally, because I realized, okay, not everyone hates me because I'm like this, then I felt the courage to finally say something to my parents about it. And I'll tell you what, the best conversation that I had regarding this was with my parents. That's where it should be.
And
Period.
and Chris, and I know you both, Elena, you guys will agree here, is obviously one of the arguments they use is with pushing this stuff is, well, we want to decrease bullying. I was like, well, if you want to address bullying in schools, personally, I think we could use a little bit of it, but with some. But no, if you seriously want to address bullying in schools, then why not just address being cruel to others in general? That you should not be verbally harassing. Use a general way of approaching it. That it is wrong to verbally harass someone, to push someone, to kick someone. Like, those are discussions you can have that covers all the bases, by the way. There is no need to go into this special focus, on sexuality of all things. It's just, now I want to say one thing. I am not shocked. I already kind of pictured that this woman had rainbow glasses, by the way. I already felt like I knew that. So that was not a
Of
shocking
course.
development. Now, as far as the flags in the class, I actually do think that should be illegal. I know some libertarian types might not agree with me on that. I am
No,
strong,
I don't think they
hardcore
should be there.
America first. And the only thing I want to see in the classroom is a unifying symbol, if there was going to be a symbol, and that is the United States flag. I do not want to see any
What's right
other
behind
kind
me?
of, a flag like that. And there's been stories all about that. You guys probably remember, I don't remember the exact details, but there was the one teacher who she got suspended. I think she was ultimately fired. She had the kids pledge allegiance to the pride flag. It's just absolute insanity.
Oh,
And
that's right. I remember that happening.
yes, there was a teacher
Yeah.
who had her that was because she said she had a student who came in and he asked during the Pledge of Allegiance, she had taken down the American flag, and he goes, well, what flag? There's no flag for me to pledge allegiance to. And she goes, yes, there is. And she had the pride flag.
Get that.
I'm sorry, that is sick. And these individuals are by definition, they are groomers, right? I used the broader application of the word earlier. You got more refined with it, Elena, but both applications are 100% accurate when it comes to this woman.
Well, yeah, the pride flag, as far as I am concerned, is kind of a little bit of a grooming tool, especially if it's going to be used around children. I mean, I guess if an adult wants to display, say, a little pride symbol on their car or something like that, God knows I'm not going to ever do that because I just think it's stupid. But you know, and I never have. Even when I was on the left, I hated the pride flag. I always did because it felt like it was making me like sort of like this sort of separate thing from the rest of society. It actually felt exclusive to me, and I didn't like that. I never did.
Yeah.
And
That's not what you were going. It's never what you were going originally, right? Going for just like, let us be, leave us alone, let us live and be accepted as we
I
are.
wanted to
Right?
assimilate with society as best as I could.
Yeah.
And these groomers are essentially setting kids up for being these kind of like weird separate freaks to a certain degree. And so I mean, I agree with you, Kevin. I mean, quite honestly, I don't think anything but this should be in a classroom. And, for sure, these other, because let's face it, guys, it goes beyond even sexual grooming. It's political grooming, that's going on here.
Yes.
And the thing is they are, by displaying these pride flags and all that type of stuff. I mean, I agree with you, Kevin. I don't think they should be allowed in schools. I really don't think they should be. I think it should be illegal because they are political statements.
And
That's
guys,
what they are.
I wanna go into something here because I know some people are gonna watch this and assume that, to a degree, I know Chris and I have opened up about being more on the left before. I was even more on the left. So I don't want it coming from this perspective.
Yeah, even more than me, buddy.
You're speaking from a place you've never been. Let me make it clear. I legit have pictures of me as an activist where I'm wrapped in the pride flag. I was quite the opposite. I had earrings of the pride flag. I had necklaces of the pride flag. I waved the pride flag. I was all about it, to the point where, to be honest, that was my identity. And I once had a friend say something to me that was actually, at the time, I mean, it resonates to this day. Because, mind you, that's also a friend who cut me out for becoming too conservative. But he did say this. He goes, I actually worry for you if you achieve all your goals as an activist, as a gay activist, because what will be left of you? What will there be for you? Because it is your personality. And this was a friend at the time who was more left-leaning, said that of me. So I actually can say, that I came from quite the opposite. I quite literally once wrapped myself in the pride flag.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I'll just say, Kevin, I've never owned a pride flag except to set it on fire.
Oh, I love that when you did that. I shared that all over Twitter and Instagram. And I want to, what the thing about this with this lady is that there was a deviousness that I don't know if you caught. in her talking about how she's got flags all over her classroom. She's like, of course I can put it up there. She goes, you know, it's one of those, if you know things. And it's like, no, you're not just like subtly wearing a pin that like somebody might be like a wink and a nod at. You're sitting there. In other clips that there were so many clips that we could have been here all night, so I didn't even play everything, where she says that she always introduces herself with her pronouns first to everyone so that they have a safe space for introducing their pronouns. She wears clothes with sayings on them that talk about pride. She has signs around. So there is no like wink and a nod to a trans kid sitting in the back of the room like, hey buddy, you know, you can talk to me. Like, no, this is overt. And yet she's at the same time saying, oh, you know, it's a if you know situation. What are you talking about? Like,
you know, Elena, that's one thing I can say then. I know I got all up in the pride flag and activism. I never did the pronoun thing. I would go to events. I was still an activist when they started inserting that crap, right? And they'd go around the circle. Everyone introduced themselves in their pronoun. And I'd be like, I'm Kevin. I legit would not be like, he, him, just because it felt so stupid. And I think that was also part of the signs that I eventually was going to walk away from the crazy. But Elena, part of what she said, now the clip you played, there was a part that to me resonated and amplified the rest. And ironically, what amplified the rest was a whisper, because what she said was, no. And to me, that is what they start with to children, right? They start with the whisper, and then they go from there and get louder and louder, which is what she did. Yep. She started with the no, and then she went into the whole thing, got louder and louder, grooming that child, right? So that whisper to me just was a highlight of everything in regards to this grooming mentality and what's happening in our schools.
Yeah, and it's creepy. That whisper was just creepy.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. And we're going to get into more where you're going to see more proof of that's how she likes to talk to children about keeping secrets. But the next clip I'm going to show you is talking about kind of how she bullies children. And this is straight up bullying. Let me just hit this.
Make sure students have access to the bathroom that they feel safe in.
Oh, God.
If you have someone who says, well, I don't feel comfortable using the same bathroom as a trans student on my campus, put the burden on that person to use the nurse's bathroom and not the trans student. Have the trans student choose the bathroom that they want to use. And if somebody's not comfortable, give them the option of the nurse's bathroom. That's what I say.
That's what I said.
Okay, I've got to go off on this. By the way, maybe I need to filter this a little bit better. I have it on good authority. Let me put it this way: the Kansas City, Kansas public schools are being investigated for this exact same thing by the Department of Education for Title IX violations for allowing boys into girls' restaurants. So I thought that was kind of interesting. You know, and just kind of like a secondary thing too that kind of popped into my mind is that, you know, I don't want to let the gay community totally off the hook because, you know, I mean, as a group, there's been a lot of stuff that happened that I don't really agree with. But honestly, this stuff, as far as from what I can observe, especially promoting this stuff heavily in schools and stuff like that, didn't happen until this trans stuff. And that does seem to be what this is really all about. And I've said this to Kevin, you and I have had this conversation. I really think that they're trying to piggyback off of gay people and use that as a way to gain themselves some sort of legitimacy in the public. What do you think, Elena?
I just want to add that, you know, the hardcore sexuality conversation that is extremely graphic and inappropriate preceded this. And it started, you know, say around in the 60s, like being brought in an increasing graphic nature. So the kids were prepared for this. And it didn't just start with like transgenderism and now we're going to talk to kids about sexuality and sex. Like they've been getting them ready. And I don't know to what extent they were inserting, you know, different sexualities or maybe gender conversations a little bit if it was just lower key. But you know, this is kind of the end. This is kind of the probably the end game of what's been happening for decades.
And I think that's it, Elena. You actually hit the nail on the head. I think that's it. Because you're right. This did start as graphic sexual conversations. And it kind of goes back to what I said before. I mean, graphic sexual conversations about heterosexuality are not even appropriate for kids in school. And I think that's where it started. But this was ultimately the end game. Are you familiar with who John Mooney is?
No, I know the name, but not off the top.
Okay. So he is the guy, and I think he's from like the late 60s, early 70s, who really started pushing this trans stuff.
Yeah, John
and
Mooney.
he attached it to sex education.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yep.
I just, if you don't mind, I just want to jump in on that with the bathrooms and the locker rooms, right? Because I know so much of what we're going to discuss with this nut job is going to connect me back to my activist days. And that my activist days really took off in college, of course, because that's where they take off for most young
Imagine.
people. And I was a co-founder of the Gay Straight Alliance, which it was still called that back in the day. Now they refer to it as Gender and Sexuality Alliances, which in schools. But this was in college. I do want to keep that focus that it was college. Anyways, we were having a discussion about bathrooms, right? And us being all, you know, liberal and all open-minded, so much to the point where our brains were starting to fall out. We were talking about how multi-stalled bathrooms should be for, you know, both sexes, right? We weren't really focused on back then so much like a non-binary crap and all that. We was, you know, we still had the sex.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And so we were talking about, you know, gender-neutral multi-stall bathrooms, and that's what we wanted to push for on college campus. Our faculty advisor, right, who is a very liberal woman. I mean, a very liberal woman. She talked about kink, all that stuff, right? She said no. She said no to that. The idea of men and women sharing restrooms. And it was to a point where when I hung out with my girlfriends in college, right, when we were hanging out and waiting for a club to start, waiting for a class to start, if they had to run into the restroom, I'd run and sit on the sink and talk to them, and then they'd come out and wash their hands and go and stuff. This was I'm going to be honest, this was a view that I had. Then my view started to shift, especially once I saw the danger that this would pose to vulnerable women, but also children when applied, you know, across a larger board. But then something that really brought it home for me happened in my early years of going to a local gay bar. So a lot of gay clubs, they do have such bathrooms. It doesn't matter if you're male or female, multi-stall. One club not far from where I am has it to where when you walk in, there's a urinal right there to the right, and then the rest are stalls, right? And both men and women are allowed to use this bathroom.
Yeah, I mean, back in the 90s, some nightclubs were like that, like straight clubs. Yeah.
So this club, though, you know, one of the clubs I went to, they had changed their bathrooms. They initially had a bathroom that was just for men and a bathroom that was just for women. When they got rid of that and the bathrooms became for everybody, I remember, now mind you, at this time, I have my beard like I do now. I have my chest hair. I look like a trucker, right? I go to walk in to one of these bathrooms, right? And there was a young girl coming out. And we come face to face because I'm opening it to go in, right? And she's coming out. And we basically collide. And when she looked, I saw this look of terror on her face. It wasn't just like a startle, oh my God, this person startled me. I could see terror on her face. Now, mind you, I walked into the bathroom that was originally the men's bathroom before they did all that crap. So I will say that. However, the fact is, I saw that look of terror and vulnerability, fear, just consume her. That this big guy with this beard was in the bathroom with her, and she had to be 20 at most, right?
Right.
And so much, like, it just, like, I was already on that path. That took me all the way home. I was like, it was like I actually felt her fear. I don't know any other way to explain it. And I was like, okay, this is wrong. This is absolutely
And
wrong.
the thing is, Kevin, I really appreciate you recognizing that was something that I never did. Generally here in Kansas City, even at the gay bars, until more recently, since all the trans crap came up.
Yeah.
In Kansas City, even at gay bars, it was still split up among male and female restrooms and that sort of thing. But the thing is like, so I always respected that. I was like, I kept my ass out of the female restrooms and all that type of stuff. I just didn't see any reason to go in there. I think I did once because one friend of mine, a female, didn't feel safe, and she just kind of wanted me to stand at the door, and that's all I did. And I think that's the only time I ever kind of broke that rule. But I'll tell you what, I was at an amusement park last year, and there was a very long line for the women's restroom. And the guys were just kind of going in and out of their restroom willy-nilly and all that type of stuff. Well, this woman had a little girl with her, and she really needed to go. And I could kind of tell, I overheard the conversation, all that type of stuff. And I went over to the woman and I was like, hey, come with me. I'm going to clear out the men's restroom and I'll let you go in there by yourself so that you feel safe. And so I did. I went and stood in front of the line for the men's restroom, and I was like, "Hey guys, we have a little girl that needs to use the restroom really bad. The women's restroom line is way too long, and she's probably not going to be able to hold it. Please just stay out of the restroom." I went in there, talked to the guys who were using the restroom. I was like, "Hey, finish up. We've got a little girl that needs to come in here." And guess what I did? I let her and her mother in, but I made sure to block it so that no other men could be in there.
Yeah. That's thank you for doing that. And that's how it should be. And I don't know how, just a few years ago, remember the Pink Pussy Hats and the Me Too movement and all that. And we talked about the trauma of, sexual assault for women. But now we're saying, now those very same liberal women are saying shove men in women's sports, in women's locker rooms, in women's bathrooms. And I was a few years ago having a conversation with a liberal woman. And I said to her, I was like, just men don't belong. I was at Harvard, got to be 10 years ago. And I went to see a play with a friend of mine. And we went to intermission. We went to the bathrooms at the theater there, went to the bathrooms, and they were unisex. And the floors were like, the doors on the stalls were floor to ceiling and whatever. But I came out and I was washing my hands next to a man, and I want to check my hair and put on my lipstick. And I'm like, I hate this. I hated every second of it. And I said to my friend, I said, wow, this really made me, I don't like that at all. And she was like to me, like I was some, archaic asshole. And then a couple of years ago, I was talking to a woman, and I told her that story. And I said, I just don't think it's fair to women any women, but especially to women who have been sexually assaulted, to have to go in. And I was like, I think it would make women really uncomfortable. And she just went, oh, you don't know that. Like totally dismissed how a rape victim would feel, because rape victims do not just get over it. And, people who are sexually abused in any way do not just get over it. They're constant. No, you're going to go in and tell me to pull my pants down with Paul Bunyan and walking in behind me. Like it's insane that their duplicity on how they treat women. And this particular situation that this teacher is doing this to children makes me want to it brings out thoughts in my head that I will not unspeakable things that I have to repent for even thinking, because it makes me sick.
Well, you're only human, Elena. So I mean, hey. But I'll tell you what, you did hit the nail on the head there. You don't get over that type of stuff. And I've talked about my child sexual abuse situation publicly before, so I don't mind mentioning it here. It is something that you don't get over, and that's why this grooming stuff is something that I fight so fiercely against. Because I went through that process. I know what happens. And I do not trust these people to do the right thing. So I want to shut them down at every step along the way, period. I have not gotten over it. I still have nightmares about it. And I'm 47 years old. This
Yeah.
happened to me when I was 5. You don't get over that stuff. You never do.
Yeah.
I do want to speak to something because, Chris, you and I have had this conversation because one thing that did bond us a bit, and this isn't something I talk a lot about, but I feel compelled to, I feel called to talk about it on this stream. I was All right. Well, I would tell people that I lost my virginity at a specific age, and usually because that was the first time I gave myself to a man that I cared about. But when I was at 19, the summer I would have turned 19, I actually had my virginity taken from me. And what started off as a consensual, you know, fairly intimate encounter, but I had made clear boundaries, and the situation turned, and it is something that you do not. It is something that always remains with you. It creates a hole in you to a degree. It is hollowing out. Now, to me, I have come to feel this way about that hollowing out, that hollow feeling is what determines what will become of you after such an experience is what you choose to fill that hollowness with. If you choose to fill it with focusing, with the darkest thoughts and the darkest feelings, then that's what will consume you. But if you try to fill it with positive focuses and moving forward and all that, then I think while it will always be part of you, you can heal enough to live your life to a full extent. And so, yeah, I just, Elena,
Yeah, but
I
not
just
if
want
you
to.
have you have people continually re-traumatizing you and
Yeah.
putting you in bad situations, and that's
Well,
what
that's
you're doing.
that's just that's just it, Elena. And I remember I was what
Thank you for
was it?
sharing that, Kevin. By the way, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Kevin.
And one more thing I want to add to that is
Oh,
the
I'm sorry, and
individual
I'll
who
shut
did
up.
that to me, the individual who did that to me is a drag queen actually, and someone who no doubt, because I will admit at the time I did I did everything. I hid it. I wasn't out at the time, so I never talked to anyone really about it. But it would not surprise me if that individual, is out there and doing this shit and targeting children. It would not shock me. It would not.
Yeah.
No,
Chris,
Kevin, I was in Cameron, Missouri. So it's just north of Kansas City. And I was delivering a speech up there because they had all this oh, no, it was in southern Missouri. Hex that. I just remembered. And they had all these inappropriate books in the school library and all that type of stuff. And again, it goes along with the grooming stuff that we're talking about. And that was the first time that I actually publicly said that I was a child sexual abuse survivor. And The thing is because I started getting more and more furious with this crap that is going on in schools.
Mhm.
And I was like, I have just got to, I guess, bare my soul, so to speak. And it's a very difficult thing to do. But the thing is I was like, when I was a younger gay man and in high school, what I did is I did find some stuff in the library regarding homosexuality, but it talked about it in very generic terms and that sort of stuff. None of it was particularly graphic or anything like that. It was interesting, maybe slightly helpful. Um, but the thing is if I had been at that time exposed to the type of crap that they're putting in schools now to groom children, it would have re-traumatized me all over again.
Yeah.
That's what it would have done.
Yeah. All right. All right. We have and that's what we're doing to children. We're setting them up for years of psychological pain. Another way that these teachers are doing this, I want to show you the next clip. They're just blurring the lines of reality. So we've talked so far, about how they're shoving it on kids, how they're bullying kids with this bathroom thing, and now just keeping things completely unrealistic. Here we go.
The next one is a big one. And I think it was it Kimberly? I think, were you the one that was talking earlier? I love how you said scholars. Resisting the urge to divide the classroom up by gender, boy-girl lines. Oh my gosh, if you're doing boy-girl lines, please stop. That's the worst thing you can do. When my son was in grade school, he didn't know which line to stand in. He never felt safe. It was a big thing for him. This half of the class on this side, this half of the class on this side. When you're dividing up things like that, teams, use different names. Friends, teams, scholars. Y'all, I've started using y'all instead of guys. I sound Texan, but hey, I'm leaning into it.
Fruitcake.
Oh,
What a weirdo.
Yeah, so you're not allowed. So now, again, her son, who was definitely her daughter, what didn't feel safe in a classroom. I mean, like, because you convinced this kid that all of this gobbledygook is real, and now you're, putting boys and girl lines is some sort of evil. I mean, it's so demonic, all of it.
She had a test case at home. I thought about that earlier. I remember, I didn't mention, but I thought about that. I was like, does this woman have children? And I really was praying that she does not. But I mean, it makes sense. She has a test case at home that she's been applying. Everything that she's doing to other people's children. She's done 100 times over to her own child, unfortunately, and it's heartbreaking. That makes, it's already heartbreaking and disgusting, but the fact that she now has a child trapped in her home behind walls that she's doing this to, which that child then probably has no one to speak. At least these children in classes have parents who can, speak up when they find out about it. That child within those walls has no one, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
No, probably not.
Probably
Yeah,
not.
and I don't know I don't know what to say about that. I mean, other than we need to make it so unpalatable for these people to be pushing this stuff in our society that hopefully they will stop doing it to their own children. I mean, think about it, Kevin. I mean, when we went to Albany Pride and took the videos there, I mean, yeah, I think we saw one lesbian couple that had a little boy dressed up in a dress, and I just wanted to go over and punch them both in the face, but I don't do that sort of thing to women, so of course, I did not do that.
Yeah.
But but it certainly angered me. And that, I think that's when I also did take that pride flag, by the way, and shove it in the trash and
Yeah,
said, this is what I
yeah.
think of pride.
Yes, I think I remember hearing about that. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Wish
Chris
you
does
could be
And
this
there.
when I'm nowhere's around him, by the way. So I'm near the stage with all the music and drag queens recording, right? Getting content. Chris decides to do that at that point in time. When he's away from me, he pisses people off, and I gotta dig at you with this. So Chris chooses that time when we're separated to piss people off. I'm still in the crowd, and he's calling me, but mind you, for some reason, the ID wasn't coming across as Chris Barrett for whatever reason. He's calling me, but I'm rejecting it because I'm trying to record content, and I'm not seeing it as a Chris Barrett.
Oh,
So that's happening at that point. And then finally, after enough, he texts me and stuff, and I finally see that, and he lets me know that he did this, and I was like, Chris, I don't disagree with that you did it, but now you're this eagerness. We got to get out of here. I'm bringing attention, and I'm separate from you.
we had to
I
get
was
out
just
of there.
like,
We had to get out of there when I did that.
oh goodness.
Um,
that's great.
but the thing is I don't know. I mean, I just want, like I said, going back to what I started off this conversation as, is like it was kind of interesting at Albany Pride because yeah, we saw that one lesbian couple there with their boy dressed up as a girl. That was obviously inappropriate and that made me sick. But the funny thing is there were moms and dads there with their children. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? What are you
Yeah.
doing? Why
What
are
do you
you
do?
exposing your children to this stuff? I'm a gay dude. I don't even want to be here. That's why I
Yeah, they
shoved the
truly.
pride flag. That's why I shoved the pride flag into the trash can and yelled out to
Mhm.
everybody, this is what I think of pride.
So, guys,
I don't want to be there.
there was one. I always try to say that in this, I had a communication following Schenectady Pride, which I know we're gonna actually cover a clip from Schenectady Pride later with a specific drag performer who came at us. I actually, when I posted one of those videos, I had someone I knew reach out to me, and he goes, you captured my wife and son in one of those videos. And he goes, I was not expecting to go to Pride and see that. That was the Pride where there was that burlesque performer. Remember?
Yeah.
He goes, I was not expecting that. He goes, my children will never go to another Pride. So
But he
I
was
take
still
that.
standing there. What are you still
I
doing
know.
there once you see it?
And
Weakling.
I just
Sorry.
honestly, I was just, and mind you, I've only engaged with him a couple times. I'd never met his wife or kids, so I actually don't know who they were in the videos. But at least he did say, so I want to give him that he said he will
All right.
never bring his children to Pride. And I hope he was being honest with that. I really do, and I hope he sticks to that. But you're right. Did he just pick up and leave? I will admit, I didn't ask if he just picked up at that time and left when he saw that, because obviously his wife and child were there watching it long enough to happen to be captured by the video. So I don't know. I just can only hope that he's genuine when he says in the future he'll never take his children to Pride again.
Yeah, I hope he wears the pants in that house and he's not run by some liberal Karen who's going to keep pushing this on their kids. No, that's true though. Look at a lot of men today. A lot of men today, the women wear the pants and they just yes honey, everything, and they don't actually protect their families the way that they're supposed to, and that's how they land in situations where their children are being, having somebody shake their junk in their face at a parade. I want to show you, but these are things we're talking about that are out in the open. That teacher, I would love to know how she would feel if somebody like any one of the three of us had time alone with her child to have private conversations that were secret, right? Listen to this.
Practicing empathy with those students who might be not in supportive classrooms, or supportive home environments. If that's the case, you may be the only person that they have to go to. Now, if it's a one-on-one situation, if a student shares their names and pronouns, ask who they're comfortable knowing this information. Can I share this with other people? Do you want other, teachers to be calling you this? Do we need to talk to the other educators on campus? Leave pronouns in your subplans. If you have students that identify as a gender other than the one on their birth certificate, and you know this and you use it in class, please leave it in your subplans so that student is not outed during a subsession.
Oh, good
So
God.
I'm going to
You
play
know,
another one. Can I play the second clip too? I
yeah,
just realized
please do.
because it's all one conversation. This is where she's talking about a computer program called Synergy. It's a student information system where they keep all data on the students.
Advocating for your trans students on campus, Synergy has something that's called a ghost mode. Many people don't know about this, but basically what it is, it's a ghost screen that goes in front of the state reporting system, and it can show the correct name, the correct gender, without having any legal documentation tied to it. So if the student hasn't gone through a name change, hasn't gone through a gender change, and just a heads up, in the state of Arizona, it is a surgical requirement to change the gender on your birth certificate. And there is a law that disallows anyone having surgery prior to the age of 18. So none of your students prior to the age of 18 are going to have a correct birth certificate. This Synergy Ghost Screen can show the correct gender, and it's really easy. Your IT department can do it. I've spoken to the Synergy people. They're based locally. If you need any help with your district in doing this, let me know. I will show you how to do it.
I will show you how to hide false information that you're keeping on the children because their birth certificates are not correct.
This hits home. I know what she's talking about. Because my husband is in charge of exactly that type of stuff in a particular school district. I'm not going to name it, but they were doing some of the same stuff in this particular school district. They have since shut it down. They're not doing it anymore because they're facing a lot of pressure.
Good.
Let's put it that way. Anyway, but the thing is that this stuff in schools and talking about, like, they're not, they don't have the right birth certificate or whatever. I have come out very publicly, and I'm going to reiterate it here, that if I am elected, I am going, because I have not ever heard any legitimate reason why someone needs to change the sex on their birth certificate, not even dealing with intersex issues. I have never heard of any reason why anyone actually needs to do that. I want to make it illegal to change sex on birth certificates and driver's licenses in the state of Missouri. That'll shut a lot of this stuff.
It absolutely should be the case. Thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I think that will shut a lot of this stuff down, because then they're not going to even have a legal basis for what they're wanting to do. They can't show a birth certificate. A male can't show a birth certificate or a driver's license that says he's female on it, and I think that is something that we need to do. Now, am I going to get the support of even the Republican Party to do something like this? I don't know. I really do not know, because there's a lot of rhinos out there, and I hate the term rhino because I've even been called one. But there are a lot of rhinos out there, and so hopefully I can gather enough support to actually get that done, because there is no legitimate reason to change sex on a birth certificate or a driver's license. So what this woman is saying, that they have the incorrect incorrect birth certificate or something like that, it's like, no, honey, They have the correct birth
They,
certificate.
yeah, they have an observation. That's what they have on that birth certificate. But what you highlighted, Elena, in that, and I'm glad you played that clip, right? Because first and foremost, this woman is absolutely grooming children. But I feel like the clips you just played highlights how a major part of this is also grooming the culture, right?
Oh,
That's
sure.
what this is. And that was the focus there. You know, she's talking about how other adults should do this, how other teachers should do this, how, people should do this and that.
Yeah.
This is not just about grooming children, which is obviously truly horrific and evil. This is about grooming the culture at large. And I can't help but think of here in New York State, there's a gentleman by the name of Dennis Hannon. He actually had an experience, and I know this man personally, where he found out that his son was being transitioned by the school and his ex-wife because he got a letter in the mail with a girl's name, with the student being a girl's name. And at first he thought it was a mistake. I think the name was Amber or Abby. I think it started with an A. And so he gets his name. Ruby. Sorry, I think it was Ruby. He gets this letter with the girl's name on it, and he goes, "Okay, this must be a mistake." Then he realizes and then confirms that no, that is his son. That is his son. And he actually ultimately wound up losing again and again in the battle with his ex-wife. Fortunately, he was able to hold things off long enough for his son to get to a point where his son said, "No, I'm happy being a boy." So that's a blessing. Thank God for that. But unfortunately, there are so many fathers and in some cases mothers. I know by and large it's mothers pushing this, but we have seen some cases of fathers doing it. But there are so many parents out there in that same situation where unfortunately they're not able to hold it off into the point where their child can say, no, I know who I am.
Because you have so much pressure from cities, states, the teachers unions, and it goes right down into the classroom where they're spending most of their time. And then if you're not the kind of parent who's with your child after school, then the kid is in here talking to people about all of these feelings, and that's because they become completely self-obsessed to the point where every single feeling they need to have a conversation about every single feeling, and they're doing that inside these trans communities online. It's very hard to get those kinds of hooks out of your children because it's a cult. And there's your kid sleeping in his own bed every night, but your kid is living and breathing his entire life as part of a cult. And we've known, I mean, remember we saw after school specials when we were growing up about kids who got caught into cults, right? I mean, it's very hard to get them out.
Right.
Now we're doing it in school though. And it's really, I mean, do we have any closing thoughts on this particular thing? I'm going to say, before we move on to the next topic, which is related, I do want to say, I do believe that this woman is a groomer. I do believe that the jury will reasonably see that calling her a groomer is not defamation, because she is preparing children and indoctrinating children into a behavior that she wants from them. And that's
I'll say that I absolutely agree. That is what she is. I mean, she's definitely grooming children. I mean, those whole slides that you played and everything like that were nothing but just indoctrination tactics. That's all it was. And I will say, by the way, guys, for the next person that wants to call me a rhino, I do want to say I am listed on the ACLU's website, the Southern Poverty Law Center's website, as a far-right extremist. So you might want to check into that before you call me a rhino, okay?
I just want to say that I'm a little jealous.
I know.
How come we're not on the list, Kev?
I know, right? It's discrimination. It's discrimination. Oh, damn. No, I am jealous of Chris in that regard.
There's no rhino on the list. Yeah.
No. You know what? Quickly on the rhino thing, I still get a giggle when I see people insult others as rhinos and spell it RHINO, because I'm like, you don't know what rhino stands for, do you? It's an acronym. It means Republican in name only. It's not the animal, all right?
the animal.
Sorry, I just had to because I've had some amusing interactions in that regard. Chris, if you're done, am I okay to give my final thoughts on this?
I'm done. I'm done.
So
I just
I
had to
guess for
throw in that
me,
little jab.
Right now.
yeah, I want my final thoughts are I want to give them to parents and legal guardians, parents, grandparents. If you have a child in your life that you love that's in school, and not just public school, because some private schools are even worse, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not just the public school system, so keep that in mind, folks. If you have a child that is in school, that you love, engage with that child when it comes to their education. Now, I know a lot of parents, a lot of legal guardians have said, and I've had these conversations, well, I don't want to accidentally, while having a conversation with my child, introduce them to something and get a conversation going that I'm not ready for if it's not happening at all, right? And I'm like, okay, I get that. So this woman right here is a perfect example. She's made it clear that she's big on using pronouns, right? Whenever she enters a room, pretty much. So no doubt, obviously, when she's in class, she's like, my name is whatever, Predator, and my pronouns are. So ask your child on their first day of school, did everyone go around the class and introduce themselves? If so, how did you introduce yourselves? Was it just your name, right? And ask your kid, in your classroom, are there flags? Is there the American flag? Are there other flags than the American flag? What do they look like? If your child's like, oh, it's a rainbow, then you know. So there are ways to ask your children, especially your younger children, questions that will tune you into what's going on in their school environment without you being like, is there a pride flag? Are there pronouns? You can have this conversation with your child to stay informed in a fashion where, for the most part, they're none the wiser. You're just, once again,
Yeah.
how does everyone introduce themselves? Are there certain flags? Has anyone ever asked you not to tell me something? That's the big thing. Make it clear to your child that it is never appropriate and that you will never get angry at them if they tell you, if an adult at school ever tells them to keep something from you. Drill that into your child from day one, that it is never okay for an adult at school to tell them to not tell you something. And you want to know immediately if that happens, they will not be in trouble no matter what that person says to them. You will love them no matter what you want, in that it's for their protection. People, have these conversations. Parents, legal guardians, please have these conversations.
Yeah, thank you. That's absolutely true. And yeah, and if my kid came home and said, actually, yeah, the teacher's pronouns are they, them, and Al told me that my pronouns are he, him, or whatever, then I would be going nuts, and I would be telling them that they're crazy, they're lying to you, don't believe them, and you're not going there tomorrow, ever again. So because
School choice
is coming. All right, let's get into Kevin. So Kevin, you have had some experiences, similar to these people in Arizona who've been sued by this teacher because, well, as soon as you call somebody out on what they're doing or just call attention to what they're doing, they suddenly play the victim card. I'm gonna show a note that you got from somebody, and then I'm gonna ask you to explain it. Hold on a second. Okay. Good morning. I am the transsexual that you had spoken about in your live broadcast. Now I'm going to ask you politely to please remove my photos and any segments of your video that you feel the need to speak about me, or I will go to the police and file a harassment report. You have no rights to be posting my pictures, and you have no right to be speaking about me. I will take legal action. Thank you. And that was written by a individual named Emily Cope. So, Kevin.
It was written by a man, first of all, as we know. But Elena, first of all, I gotta give you props because that tone, that way of speaking, I feel like it's very on point. I never spoke to this individual. I never spoke to this guy, but I feel like you captured the tone. Yeah. So that's why I was laughing even all the more. So to give this context, this individual, this guy, performed with the drag queens at Schenectady Pride, a local pride here in New York State, where I went undercover before I went undercover in Albany with Chris. And I went undercover, yep, right here. So this is this guy's performance in front of children. There's more.
You can keep
Yeah, that
talking.
looks
Keep
that
telling
looks
the story.
child friendly.
So this is the individual that is messaging me, and this is his friend, messaging me, threatening to sue me if I don't take his images and all the performances down. Now, my response, which I know you have, but to sum it up, my response was basically, you performed in a public setting. You performed in a public setting, right? With full knowledge that there were cameras there. And I have to ask, are you reaching out to everyone that you have seen post such, snippets from Pride where you might be in, and asking them to take those down? And I actually, I will say I pat myself on the back a little bit there, because I wanted to go off because I was sickened by this individual. But I realized this individual is looking for that. So I basically said, no, here's the law. Here's what it is. You performed in a public setting, right? No expectation of privacy. And I highly doubt that you're out there looking for every single person who posted a clip of you and asking them to take it down. So we will not be removing the videos and the content and the pictures. That will not be happening. And that is what I told this guy right here.
Right on. So. All right. Yeah. Now, I guess you kind of already told us what that text said, so we can move on from that. I'm going to pop up the next slide from this similar conversation. Somebody named Phoenix Fox says, "Please don't post pics or videos of me or friends of mine. I will sue." And then, I guess one of his friends came along and said, "And let me know if you need any good recommendations. Seriously." So what is this one about? Was this the same thing?
This one was actually from Albany Pride. Now I want to make it clear, Albany and Schenectady, depending on how you drive, are within about 30, 40 minutes of each other, right? So a lot of the drag performers perform in both locations. So this was likely a guy who had performed in Schenectady as well. Now that Edward guy, I interacted with a bit more because he makes another comment, and I engaged with him, and he blocks me because he as he said, he wants to help get this guy in contact with someone that can help. And once again, I bring up, there is no expectation of privacy. But I believe in his other comment, which I think I sent you, he goes on, there's a talk about how I am creating a threatening situation by exposing them, so on and so forth, right? And I'm like, no. This is where I actually said, first of all, when I created these videos, I actually never once mentioned the names of these drag queens, by the way. I don't mention their name. I did not mention their names. I did not do anything. So I'm not telling anyone, because basically that's what he was accusing me of, is putting them in harm's way by directing people to harass them.
I'm sorry, but they're so dumb. Like, I
said, no, first of all, I didn't even mention their names in the clip, by the way. I didn't put titles as to who the drag queens were. But also, I'm going to point out, they're the ones exposing themselves to that, because they're coming to my post and commenting and telling everyone who they are.
Even if you're absolutely right, but even if you had given their name, it was a public performance, which I'm sure they were promoting on their own personal and business socials anyway. I'm saying you were going to be down at the park
for his argument in that context, in that clip that you played, I didn't put the names of the drag queens in there, because I just didn't want it to clutter up and all that. But I did share flyers earlier on that did have names of drag queens and stuff. But in that specific, what he was referencing, even his claim that I was directing people, basically doxing these queens and sending people to harass them, no, these queens were coming to my page and exposing who they are all on their own. I did not need to do that work. I mean, come on, people.
Come on.
But he blocked me. He blocked me after that. And then Chris came in and had his own comment, which
Oh, Chris,
appreciated.
do you want me to read this, or do you want to read it in your own voice, Chris?
I'll read it in my own voice.
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Good luck with that. It's a public space. Go crawl back into the hole you came from if you don't want pictures of yourself shown.
And this is a repeated. There was another individual, and I don't know if you have this screenshot, who was on my social media for a while. And Jasmine.
I have it. I can pull it up. Chris,
right.
I want to first say thank you because I enjoyed that so much more. And
I'll let you read that one. Elena, I want you to read that one, and then I'll add more context to it.
All right, I'll do the Jasmine one. Okay. So Jonathan, is this it or no?
That's the Jonathan Edward that I just referenced, where he was basically accusing me of sending people to harass them, I believe. No, the Jasmine one is
the Jasmine one.
All right. So this Jasmine individual has repeatedly before I went to these events and after between the events was saying I'm informing the police, right? Specifically the Albany one. Because she reached out to me, and like I said, I believe this actually is a biological woman. On Instagram, constantly coming at my content, saying I'm informing police that you're there, and her argument is that I'm filming children, right? So that was the angle she was going to try to take, is that I'm filming children. And I'm like, no, I'm protecting children. I blur out their faces. I always do that. You don't try to twist this, because you would not. If there was a video made of a child at Pride that showed a drag queen smiling and laughing with the child, you would have no problem with that, would you?
Yeah.
Of course you wouldn't. So anyways, what she threatened to do was to speak to local law enforcement, because apparently she has friends in the local law enforcement, and turn me in, and that she's collecting data on me, a file or some crap like that of my work and all that. And I'm like, please. She actually tagged the police in one of these threads on Instagram, and I responded, I'm like, yes, I actually would love to hear law enforcement defend this. And I responded to that. So the law enforcement was tagged as well. So if I remember correctly, and I'm like, yes, I would love to hear the local law enforcement defend children being exposed to this. I would absolutely love. Please have them reach out to me. Please.
And that was the end of it.
Yeah, that was pretty much the end. At least of that specific conversation, it was the end.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. I mean, the threats. I mean, this one in Arizona, she went for it. She got a real lawyer and put out some real lawsuits. But, and from what I can see, I don't buy her lawsuit. I don't think it's going to really have any teeth, but at least she's harassing, the people that she doesn't like in a stronger way, other than these absolutely idiotic attacks that you get. I mean, it's really sad. Now, Chris, you have been subjected to an actual lawsuit. Unfortunately, it is, I'm sure, a huge hassle and expense. But what's the deal there?
Yeah, so I'll bring this out. This is the lawsuit against me. You can see that it's over 100 pages long. All it's based on is a speech that I made before the St. Charles County Council in St. Charles, Missouri. That's the opposite side of the state from where I live, but I was doing some work down there. What who the person is, and I'm happy to say his name. His name is Danny Roberson of St. Charles, Missouri. And it's a part of public record, so you can't do anything about me saying that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what Danny was offended by is the fact that by the way, in the speech, I never mentioned him by name. Ever. Didn't ever even mention him by name. I was talking about a librarian, at the St. Charles County Public Library who dressed as a woman, had a full beard, by the way, and called himself a woman. And he worked in the children's section of the library. That's where he worked. Now, I didn't even call him a groomer or anything along those lines. I just said that it was inappropriate for a man, and he didn't like the fact that I called him a man. I said that it was inappropriate for a man with a full beard dressed as a woman to be in the children's section of a library. I said this before the St. Charles County Council. It got a bunch of coverage in St. Louis and all that type of stuff. He decided to sue me for saying this. And it was because in a post on X, I talked, I had said something about I was like this kind of pervy guy or something like that. I can't remember exactly what I said. But anyway, the funny thing is, this lawsuit's not going to go anywhere. It's just been strung out for a long time.
Yeah.
But the thing is Missouri has a law that if you are speaking in a public forum, like I was doing before the government, again, what I was doing, I could have said anything I wanted to say about him.
Mhm.
I could have said anything.
Even
But
if
I
it was,
didn't.
even if it was slanderous.
Yes. But I didn't say anything along those lines. Because you in the state of Missouri have the right to petition your government, and you can say whatever you want to say when you are speaking before the government. And
So how did he have a lawyer that would bring this case? What is his case? What is he charging you with?
defamation.
Defamation.
Yeah. And so obviously he's trying to shut me down because it became quite clear after looking into this that he has actually been following me quite closely and what I've been doing across the state of Missouri, speaking out about the trans stuff and everything like that.
Is he watching now?
Because it was actually
Because if you're trying to shut him down, it's not working.
yeah, it's because it was actually several months after I even made that speech that I
Oh.
got sued. So he's obviously been following this. Now, I will say, thankfully, by the way, guys, I have a wonderful attorney. I wish in St. Louis, I have a wonderful attorney in St. Louis who is representing me. He is a conservative Catholic man, and he's doing it pro bono because he believes in the stuff that I'm doing. So this actually isn't really hurting me financially in any sort of way, which is good. I also want to give some credit, and I don't to an organization that I had been with. Initially they footed the initial bill because here's the thing. I do have a very high profile attorney in Missouri, and his initial bill was going to be $100,000. And then he found out exactly what I was trying to do, and he was like, I'll take 3,000 and the rest is free. And
Wow.
so that was it. And so thank God for John. That's his name. His name's John. Wonderful man out of St. Louis. The case is still going on, but really the main point is these people are trying to use lawfare in order to shut us down and intimidate us. And that's what this teacher in Arizona is trying to do as well. She's trying to shut us down from disagreeing with what they're doing by introducing frivolous lawsuits against us. The thing is, guys, all I was doing was just offering an opinion. I didn't accuse him of actually doing anything.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm getting sued for, is my opinion. So, yeah, what you brought up tonight, Elena, does hit home for me personally because essentially I would have probably have been one of those people that this idiot teacher in Arizona would have sued.
Yeah.
And it's the exact same type of thing. To my knowledge, he is still a librarian in St. Charles County Public Library. Um, I don't know if he's still wearing a beard and all that type of stuff. I have absolutely no idea. Um, the he sued many other people as well, and so those of us who have all been sued know each other pretty well now because we kind of stayed in contact over this. And I'll tell you what, he actually sued people from other states as well.
So
And
he helped bring people together.
I am pretty sure that he also, just like I'm getting free legal representation, he probably didn't have to pay for his either. Because let me see if it's here on this. No, it's not. But anyway, it's a Kansas City based law firm, and I think they're like the LGBT law of Western Missouri.
Hmm.
And
And that's what happens in a lot of these cases. You know, you'll get like a nonprofit or an ACLU type to file.
right.
Right.
And it did get brought up, by the way, that the ACLU has a big problem with me. They tried to use that as evidence.
Ew, like that's a feather. That's a badge of honor. ACLU hates you. Oh.
I'm not gonna. Okay,
Yeah.
if I ever were to end up on the ACLU, their website as a far right extremist, I mean, I think that might be my profile picture for a little bit. A screenshot of that.
Yeah, that's gonna be my Christmas card if it ever happens.
It's gonna be my any letter I write. Heck, I'm gonna put that on the background of my business card. Just because. Because that really is a badge of honor this day and age. I wanted to ask. Actually, there's two things I wanted to kind of ask about. The first thing is, so it sounds like Missouri has obviously very broad protections when it comes to speech in the context in which you spoke. I know some people would argue against that because they would say, well, you really could do damage to an innocent person, such if you can say anything, that you could really damage someone's reputation. Like, for example, someone, say a out there nutty feminist got up and said this man is a rapist, all this stuff, and during the Me Too movement and all that. So I know some people would, and I think they bring up a genuine, concern about that approach. But the fact that it's so broad, though, so that you're in a location where that does protect you. I, however, think that it's also a matter of using language, because you said something, right? In my opinion. And I think that is something that I always encourage people when they're going to discuss, especially when they're discussing someone's behavior. And I know Chris and I, we try to stress that our opinion. Mind you, of course, we know it's fact, but we say in our opinion, this is, I consider this predatorial behavior. I consider this grooming, right? And I feel like, using certain wording, because that's what's actually stopped them from being able to come at me here in New York State. Because obviously I'm in a very liberal state. I'm in a state that our governor quite literally told Republicans and conservatives to leave the state, right? Kathy Hochul told us to leave. And the way things are going, if, at least Stefanik doesn't run and kick Kathy Hochul out, we're considering it very much so. But so this tells you what kind of state I'm in. So I will admit I've gotten creative in having discussions. I try to avoid directly calling someone something, but I try to bring out the behavior. So much to the point where this one local woman who's a trans man, I've learned to address her in ways that she at first threatened to sue me. Her favorite thing whenever she gets in a whenever she gets in a conflict with someone, by the way, she accuses them of wanting to rape her. That is to assault her. That is her go-to. But with me, she tried to say that I was accusing her of being a groomer. So what I did was I led her on a conversation to the point where I got her to actually, she genuinely, I didn't get her, I got her to reveal fully her intentions. She fully admitted that she believed that children were capable of consent. And anytime after that point, you best believe I screenshotted that.
Excuse my language,
I
guys, but for
screenshotted
fuck's
that.
sake.
I screenshotted that, and she stopped engaging with me not too long after that. I actually made a video about her, by the way. And after that, whenever we got a back and forth, she and I referred to her as supporting grooming and indoctrination of children. And I'd say, you believe that children can consent when it comes to their bodies? That's evil. And she'd be like, well, no, you're trying to, defamation of character. I every time would post that screenshot, and I'd be like, "You full on admitted that you believe that children are capable of consent. You
That's
admitted it right there."
Yeah,
So,
and
so if you're in like a liberal state, like here in New York, folks, I'll admit that the deck is against you, right? It really is. So but I don't want you to stop engaging in those states. I don't want you, if you're in New York or California, don't stop engaging. You might have to get a bit creative when it comes to engaging, but the children need you, the women need you, this whole nation needs you, regardless of what state you're in, because what concerns me, and I know I'm rambling a bit, but
No, you're not
really,
rambling. You're not rambling at all. Go ahead.
what concerns me is I hear a lot of people say, well, I left this state and I'm not coming back, or people who are from a red state saying, well, that's New York, that's California. And I'm like, I get that mindset, I do. But here's the problem with that. That would be like having cancer in your body and saying, well, it's just in the toe. It can stay there. No. When does cancer usually stay in one specific part of the body? It's when does that, oh no, it's just there. The problem is we live in a country where people move from one state to another, obviously. Well, that's not a problem. That's part of America.
And it's not even a natural metastasizing of the cancer. This is an aggressive deliberalism. Progressivism is an aggressive, deliberately spreading cancer.
Exactly.
So you're
yeah, for sure. Go right ahead, Kevin, and then I have one last thing to say.
You're ignoring it, but that's what concerns me when I see people who have always been in red states say, oh, well, I don't care, that's New York, or people leave the state and think, well, it will never catch up with me again. I've left New York, I've left California, I'm free. Are you sure that cancer is not going to spread beyond that toe? Can you really believe that?
Yeah, that's the thing, Kevin. I mean, it's like here I am in the very red state of Missouri, and I'm still getting sued by this trans person. And mind you, there a couple things that I need to bring up. I never mentioned this person by name in my speech or on social media. So no one would necessarily have had any idea of who I was talking about unless they did some digging into it. I was just talking about this person in general and talking about also the fact that I just didn't agree with someone who was doing this, being around children. That's all I was doing. Back to the point about the fact that since this is actually all over a speech that I gave before the government, I do kind of want to backtrack just a little bit because Elena, you brought up the thing about slander. I honestly do not know. My attorney just said that you are free to give your opinion before a government body, even if it may not make a person look nice at all, but I did state it as an opinion. I didn't state anything as a fact.
And again, you didn't even say his name.
And
Yep.
I never said his name. I mean, I'm saying his name now because it's a matter of public record. He
Right.
gave his name away to me.
Yeah.
I didn't even know this asshole's name.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I made that speech, I didn't even know his name. Had no idea. I just had concerned parents come to me from St. Charles and say, "Hey, Chris, could you come here and talk about this in front of the St. Charles St. Charles County Council?" It's a mouthful. And so I did, and that was it. No one even told me his name. No one told me his name.
Yeah.
And I didn't care what his name was. You know, that
You were
wasn't
really
the
making
issue.
more of a social philosophical point, it sounds like, than really going after an individual. You were talking about a cultural problem of mental child abuse at that point, and beyond. And he sounds, if he's suing a lot of different people, he sounds like he's just looking for cash. And that may be what's happening. What I'll say to all of this is, at the end of it, I will continue to speak the truth. I spoke to one of the people that this teacher is suing. So she sued 4 people. 2 of the cases have been dismissed by the judge. It appears that the judge kind of wants to play both sides a little bit because it's so touchy. But I spoke to one of the people who still has a case against her. Her name is Peggy. And I said to her, all right, I'm not going to stop using the word groomer, Peggy. I said, we're going to be out here and we're going to keep telling the truth because it needs to be told. And we're not going to let these people back down, force us to back down and force us into a corner. I mean, the name of the documentary that I made about the sexualization of children in schools is American Groomer. I'm not changing it. Our public schools are grooming our children for sex. They are non-contact sexually abusing our children and preparing them for sexual abuse by each other, by strangers on the internet, by creepy uncles, because they're getting them ready for all of it. Same thing with the transgender stuff. So I do judge this teacher, Tami Staas, as a groomer. If she wants to come after me, come after me. We'll figure it out. But that is what I see based on what my knowledge of grooming and my knowledge of childhood sexual abuse and what you're doing to these children, my knowledge of the sickness of transgenderism. So I just pray that nobody lets these people intimidate them, because the best weapon we have is the truth.
What's the Alliance Defending Freedom, by the way? I think that's what their name is. Guys, if you do find, I was lucky enough to find somebody in my own state to represent me, but if you do find yourself in a similar situation because you're a big mouth like me, look up Alliance Defending Freedom. Because they will give free legal representation to you if they believe in, what you're doing and what you said and that sort of thing. And I think that is a good option for people who are out there saying these things. And especially if you are in a more liberal state where you're probably going to be a little bit more a little bit more, open to this sort of litigation. That's someone to check out for sure.
Yes, they're a fantastic organization. There are so many cases that they have going around the country where they're protecting religious rights, parental rights, protecting people whose parents who are, kids are being sucked into transgenderism, you name it. The wonderful, wonderful organization. But I think we are just about out of time here, guys. Are there any final thoughts that we need to spit out real quick before we go?
Just go to barrettformo.com, guys. I need as much help as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say get out there, support Chris, people, support him, because even if you're not in Missouri, like I said, the cancer spreads. And so support people like Chris Barrett who are running to, annihilate this cancer. to address it. And all the more, don't stop speaking out. Even if you're in a state like where I am here in New York State, don't stop speaking out. Because if you don't speak out, what will happen will be a lot worse. The end result of you not speaking up, speaking out, will be a lot worse.
You know, I got to add, and if what he just said, we are living it. Look at what happened. Look at what's happened, you know, in the Biden administration. Look what's happened over the years. It started with cancel culture. They knew to start with cancel culture, to bring the pain for anybody that said anything that they didn't like, you know, to zip up if they didn't like something. And too many people are still succumbing to it. There have been a lot more of us who finally said enough is enough, and we're getting up and we're speaking out against all this. It's racist, you know, the lies about racism, the lies about transgenderism, whatever. The list goes on. We've seen the damage that can be done when you don't speak up. Yeah. You know, we're living in it. So, you know, things seem to be getting better, but we have a lot of cleanup and a long road of fighting ahead to restore sanity in this country. And we need more people to open their mouths and you know, live with the consequences of opening your mouth, because
you know, and you know what, Elena, I do want to throw in one extra little thing there.
Yeah.
Besides what I just said, be on the steps of the U.S. Supreme Court, I called out to homosexuals to get to stand up against this stuff, because the thing is, guys, to all my homosexual friends out there who know what I'm talking about, when I said that at the US Supreme Court, the reason I said it is because it is much harder for these groomers, these crazy people and stuff like that to go against us, because we're supposedly a part of the narrative that they support. And if we come out and speak out against this, it brings down their whole argument. It destroys it. So please, if you are a gay person, even if you're left, even if you're right, because I know left-wing gay people who are against this stuff. No matter what your political orientation is, it really doesn't matter. You know what's right, guys. And you know that we need to be protecting children. So get up off of your asses and protect children.
Mhm.
All right. I can't end it any better than that. Thank you. Kevin, Chris, I love our conversations as always. And we could probably go for another 2 hours, but you know,
Yeah. Sure.
the dog wants to go out. So he's not allowed out alone. So thank you so much for coming tonight. If you're still watching, please don't forget to drop a sub, like this video, share it with your friends. Please help us to spread the word about the lunacy that's going on, and help us inspire people to keep moving. So, and fighting against this. And God bless you. God bless America. Good night, guys.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. God bless.